Admiral Kex Thara stood on the bridge of the mighty warship Dominion's Edge and watched the strange vessels approach through the viewing screen. The four-armed reptilian commander had seen many first contact situations in his 300 years of service to the Zephyrian Empire, but these new ships looked different from anything in the galactic database. They were smaller than expected and moved in odd patterns that made no tactical sense. The human ships had appeared at the edge of Zephyrian space 3 days ago. Standard protocol demanded that Admiral Kexathera issue a formal challenge to determine territorial rights. The Empire had used this system for thousands of years, and it worked perfectly. 2 fleets would meet in open space and engage in honorable combat until one side surrendered or retreated. The winners claimed the territory and the losers were allowed to leave with dignity intact. Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel UES Horizon received the Admiral's transmission on his small bridge. The human looked young compared to Zephyrian standards, with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His crew of 42 humans had been exploring this sector for 6 months without knowing they were approaching alien territory. Dr. Lisa Brooks, the ship's xenobiologist, studied the alien transmission with excitement. She had spent her entire career hoping for this moment. The message was formal and full of ceremonial language about honor and proper combat procedures. The aliens seemed to expect humans to follow very specific rules about how space conflicts should work. Commander Alex Turner reviewed the tactical data from the Zephyrian fleet. 12 massive ships, each 10 times larger than the Horizon. Advanced weapons and shields that could destroy human vessels with ease. Turner had fought in the Mars Rebellion and knew when humans were outgunned. Traditional combat would be suicide. Admiral Kexathara waited for the human response. Every civilized species followed the same pattern when challenged. They would either accept the combat terms or negotiate for peaceful passage. Some would try to bribe their way through Zephyrian space. A few would attempt to prove their technological superiority through displays of advanced weapons. All of them followed predictable behaviors that made sense. Captain Morrison gathered his senior staff in the small conference room. The walls were covered with star charts and exploration data. Dr. Brooks explained what she had learned about Zephyrian culture from their transmission. They valued honor above all else and viewed warfare as a formal dance with established rules. Commander Turner showed the tactical analysis that proved fighting was impossible. The humans talked for 2 hours about options. They could try to run, but the alien ships were faster. They could surrender, but that might mean imprisonment or death. They could fight, but that was certain destruction. Dr. Brooks suggested trying to understand alien psychology better before making any decisions. Admiral Kexathera grew impatient as hours passed without a human response. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Velkanos, suggested that the aliens might be preparing some kind of surprise attack. Zephyrian tactical doctrine included many scenarios for dealing with treacherous enemies who broke established rules of engagement. Captain Morrison finally sent a reply to the Zephyrian fleet. The message was simple and polite. The humans acknowledged Zephyrian territorial claims and requested permission to leave peacefully. They offered to share some technological data as compensation for the intrusion. The message seemed normal, except for one detail. While Captain Morrison delivered his diplomatic response, his ship was moving, not toward the Zephyrian fleet or away from it, but in a slow spiral pattern that brought the Horizon closer to the nearest asteroid field. Commander Turner had quietly ordered the navigation changes while the formal message was being transmitted. Admiral Kexathera received the human message and found it acceptable. The aliens were showing proper respect and offering tribute. He began composing a formal reply that would allow the humans to leave Zephyrian space with honor intact. The Admiral felt satisfied that another first contact situation had been resolved according to proper procedures. Sub-Commander Velkanos noticed the human ship movement first. The vessel was drifting toward the asteroids while transmitting peaceful messages. This behavior made no sense according to standard tactical doctrine. Velkanos reported the observation to Admiral Kexathara, who found it mildly curious but not threatening. Dr. Brooks worked frantically to deploy several small research probes while the horizon moved toward the asteroid field. The probes looked like scientific equipment, but Commander Turner had modified them with advanced sensor packages and stealth coding. The devices would gather intelligence about Zephyrian technology and transmit the data back to human space. Admiral Kexathara was halfway through recording his formal response when the human ship simply vanished. Not destroyed or damaged, but gone as if it had never existed. The Zephyrian sensors showed nothing but empty space where the human vessel had been moments before. The asteroid field appeared completely normal. The Admiral stared at the empty viewing screen in confusion. No species had ever simply disappeared during first contact procedures. Enemies fought or surrendered. Allies negotiated or traded. Nobody, just left in the middle of formal diplomatic exchanges. The behavior violated every rule of civilized interaction that the Zephyrian Empire had established over millennia. Sub-Commander Velkanos ran full sensor sweeps of the area, but found no trace of the human ship. The vessel had not jumped to faster-than-light travel because the gravitational sensors would have detected the energy signature. It had not been destroyed because there would be debris and radiation traces. The ship had somehow become invisible and disappeared without triggering any of the Zephyrian detection systems. Admiral Kexathara felt a strange emotion that he had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. The humans had not followed any known pattern of behavior. They had not fought or fled or negotiated in expected ways. Instead, they had done something that seemed impossible according to everything the Admiral knew about space warfare and diplomacy. The Admiral made a note in his personal log that the humans appeared to be cowards who fled rather than face honorable combat. But deep in his mind, a small voice suggested that maybe the humans were not cowards at all. Maybe they were something else entirely. Something the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before in 3,000 years of galactic dominance. 3 weeks passed since the human ship disappeared, and Admiral Kexathara thought the incident was over. The Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of star systems, and first contact situations happened regularly. Most encounters followed standard patterns and were quickly forgotten. The Admiral expected to never hear about humans again. The first strange report came from Outpost Zeta-7 on the edge of Zephyrian space. Communications Officer Thexnara reported that their long-range transmitters were picking up unusual signals during night cycles. The signals appeared to be some kind of organized sound patterns that made no sense according to Zephyrian knowledge of physics or mathematics. Lieutenant Ben Carter crouched in the maintenance shaft above the communications room and smiled quietly. The human special operations soldier had been living inside Zephyrian facilities for 2 weeks without being detected. His team had infiltrated 3 different outposts and learned valuable information about alien technology and procedures. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez worked carefully to modify the power distribution system on Level 12 of Research Station Kepler-4. The human demolitions expert was not trying to cause damage, but rather to create harmless malfunctions that would confuse and frustrate the alien engineers. Every few days, lights would flicker or environmental controls would adjust temperature by exactly 2 degrees. The Zephyrian technicians could not understand why their perfectly maintained equipment was developing small problems. Engineer Voxathera had worked on environmental systems for 50 years and had never seen anything like the current situation. The malfunctions were too precise to be random failures, but too harmless to be sabotage attempts. Sub-Commander Velkanos received reports from 12 different facilities about minor equipment failures and strange occurrences. Computer terminals would display gibberish for exactly 30 seconds before returning to normal operation. Food synthesizers would produce meals with flavors that did not exist in the Zephyrian database. Gravity plates would adjust their output by tiny amounts that made walking feel slightly different. Admiral Kexathara studied the reports with growing concern. The incidents were happening across 3-star systems, but showed no pattern that made sense according to standard military doctrine. An enemy attacking multiple targets should focus on strategic objectives like weapons systems or command centers. Instead, someone was causing minor inconveniences that served no tactical purpose. Captain Jake Morrison reviewed intelligence data from his hidden command post inside the asteroid field. The human exploration mission had become something much larger when Earth Command learned about the Zephyrian Empire. Morrison now commanded a special operations force of 200 humans spread across alien territory in small teams. Dr. Lisa Brooks analyzed Zephyrian behavior patterns from data collected by the infiltration teams. The aliens appeared to be completely unprepared for irregular warfare tactics. Their entire military philosophy was based on formal challenges and direct confrontation between organized fleets. The concept of invisible enemies conducting psychological operations seemed to be outside their understanding. Lieutenant Carter placed another modified probe in the ventilation system of Command Post Alpha 9. The device would broadcast human music at very low volume during Zephyrian sleep periods. The sound would be barely audible but enough to disturb rest patterns and create mild anxiety among the alien personnel. The music was carefully selected by Dr. Brooks to have maximum psychological impact. Earth songs with complex rhythms and emotional content that would seem alien and unsettling to species that had evolved very different cultural traditions. The humans were not trying to drive the Zephyrians crazy, but rather to make them feel uncertain and confused about what was happening. Sergeant Rodriguez completed her work on the water recycling system at mining station Tau 6. The system would now occasionally produce water that tasted slightly different due to harmless mineral additions. The change would be noticeable but not dangerous. Zephyrian personnel would spend time investigating the problem without finding any real threat. Subcommander Velkanos began to suspect that the random incidents might not be random at all. The pattern of small disruptions across multiple facilities suggested coordinated activity by an intelligent enemy, but the enemy was invisible and their objectives were unclear. Velkanos had studied military history for decades and had never encountered anything like this situation. Admiral Kexathara called a meeting of senior staff to discuss the growing number of reports. Intelligence Officer Prime Analyst Zorthek presented data showing that the incident started exactly 3 weeks ago. The timing matched perfectly with the human first contact encounter, but that seemed impossible since the human ship had fled from Zephyrian space. The Admiral found it difficult to believe that the cowardly humans who had run away from honorable combat could be responsible for the current problems. Zephyrian sensors showed no signs of human ships or technology in any of the affected systems. The incidents appeared to be caused by equipment failures rather than enemy action. Lieutenant Carter listened to the Zephyrian command meeting through monitoring devices his team had placed throughout the facility. The aliens were confused and frustrated, but had not yet realized the true scope of human infiltration. Carter's teams had been living inside Zephyrian installations for weeks while gathering intelligence and conducting psychological operations. Dr. Brooks received reports from all infiltration teams and was amazed by what humans could accomplish when they thought creatively. The Zephyrians had designed their facilities to keep out large, organized military forces, but had never considered the possibility of individual soldiers living inside their walls like parasites. Sergeant Rodriguez completed her latest project by modifying the artificial gravity generators on Observation Post Gamma 3. The changes would cause very slight variations in gravitational pull that would make Zephyrian personnel feel mildly dizzy without causing any real harm. The effect would be subtle but persistent, and would add to the growing sense of unease among alien forces. Subcommander Velkanos made a disturbing discovery while reviewing security footage from Research Station Kepler-4. The recording showed brief glimpses of movement in areas that should have been empty. The shapes were too small to be Zephyrian personnel, but too large to be maintenance robots. Something was living inside their facilities without permission. The discovery led to a comprehensive security sweep of all affected installations. Zephyrian soldiers searched every corridor and maintenance shaft looking for signs of intruders. They found evidence that someone had been living in spaces too small for Zephyrian bodies, food containers and waste products that did not match anything in the alien database. Admiral Kexathera realized that the humans had not fled in cowardice, but had instead adopted a completely different approach to warfare. Instead of meeting Zephyrian forces in honorable combat, the humans had chosen to infiltrate and harass from the shadows. The tactic was unlike anything in 3,000 years of galactic military history. The Admiral felt a mix of anger and grudging respect for human cleverness. The Zephyrian Empire had always won through superior firepower and formal tactics. Now they faced an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. An enemy that could live in impossible places and strike without warning before disappearing, back into the shadows. The revelation changed everything Admiral Kexathera thought he knew about warfare and diplomacy. The humans were not cowards or primitives, but rather a completely different kind of intelligent species. A species that approached conflict in ways that the Zephyrian Empire had never imagined possible. Admiral Kexathera decided that enough was enough. The human infiltrators had been playing games for too long, and it was time to end their childish harassment tactics. The Admiral ordered a full military response against suspected human positions in the border systems. 12 Zephyrian battle fleets would converge on areas where the strange incidents had been most frequent. General Kate Williams received the intelligence reports from Captain Morrison's infiltration teams and immediately understood what was about to happen. The human military strategist had arrived from Earth with reinforcements just in time to face the first real Zephyrian assault. Williams commanded 3,000 human personnel scattered across dozens of hidden bases in the asteroid fields. The Zephyrian attack began at dawn on the fourth planet of the Kepler system, where long-range sensors had detected what appeared to be human settlements. Admiral Kexathera expected to find military installations filled with soldiers and weapons. Instead, his forces discovered farming communities with families and children going about their daily lives. War scholar Quinthek observed the assault from the flagship and felt confused by what he was seeing. The human settlements looked completely peaceful, with no visible defensive systems or military equipment. The inhabitants appeared to be civilian colonists who had simply chosen an unfortunate location for their homes. The first Zephyrian landing ships touched down near the largest human settlement, expecting little resistance from the apparent farmers and merchants. The alien soldiers advanced in perfect formation, following standard assault procedures that had worked successfully for thousands of years. They planned to secure the area quickly and capture any military personnel for questioning. Lisa Brooks appeared at the edge of the settlement carrying what looked like medical supplies and wearing simple civilian clothing. The human xenobiologist walked calmly toward the advancing Zephyrian forces with her hands visible and empty. She called out in the alien language that she was a doctor and requested to speak with their commander about treating wounded civilians. The Zephyrian assault team leader approached Dr. Brooks while maintaining tactical formation. Standard military protocol required humane treatment of non-combatant personnel during occupation operations. The alien commander was prepared to establish a temporary medical station and process civilian evacuations according to established procedures. Dr. Brooks smiled politely and activated the emergency signal device hidden in her medical kit. The signal triggered coordinated responses from every human in the settlement, who immediately transformed from peaceful civilians into deadly combatants. Agricultural equipment became improvised weapons, while children and elderly residents revealed military training that rivaled veteran soldiers. Ensign Chris Davis had been working as a baker in the settlement for 2 months while actually serving as communications coordinator for the Human Resistance Network. The young officer used flour grinding equipment to produce explosive charges, while his bread ovens served as camouflaged weapons manufacturing facilities. The Zephyrian soldiers found themselves facing enemies who fought with tools and tactics they had never encountered. Human farmers used soil cultivation lasers as precision weapons, while livestock handlers employed animal control devices to disable alien equipment. Every aspect of the settlement had been designed to serve double purposes. Sergeant Rodriguez had taught the human colonists how to convert civilian infrastructure into military assets. The settlement's water pumps could launch projectiles, while power generators doubled as electromagnetic pulse weapons. Even playground equipment for human children contained hidden defensive systems. War scholar Quinthek watched the battle unfold and realized that humans made no distinction between military and civilian populations. Every person in the settlement was trained for combat, regardless of their apparent occupation or age. The concept was completely alien to Zephyrian understanding of how civilized societies should organize themselves. The Zephyrian assault teams retreated in confusion after losing half their personnel to enemies who should not have existed. Admiral Kexithara received reports that described civilian farmers fighting with the skill and ferocity of elite military units. The humans had turned an entire colony into a weapons system disguised as a peaceful community. General Williams coordinated the defense of 12 human settlements across 3 star systems. Each community appeared to be a civilian target, but functioned as a military fortress when threatened. The humans had spent months preparing for this moment by training every colonist and converting every piece of equipment into potential weapons. Captain Morrison led the evacuation of Settlement Alpha 7 while simultaneously directing artillery strikes against Zephyrian positions. The human commander used civilian transport vehicles that had been secretly modified with military-grade sensors and communication systems. The evacuation was actually a tactical retreat that drew enemy forces into prepared killing zones. Dr. Brooks supervised medical treatment for wounded humans while also analyzing captured Zephyrian equipment for weaknesses. The xenobiologist had become a military intelligence specialist without abandoning her civilian medical duties. She treated Zephyrian prisoners with the same care as human casualties while extracting valuable information about alien technology. Admiral Kexithara studied battle reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare. Human. Civilians fought as well as professional soldiers, while their soldiers fought with an intensity that bordered on madness. The humans seemed to view every person as a potential warrior and every object as a potential weapon. The Zephyrian Empire had always maintained clear distinctions between military and civilian populations. Soldiers fought wars, while civilians supported them through economic and social functions. The system created stable societies where most people could live peaceful lives while a small warrior class handled conflicts. Humans apparently organized their entire species as a military force where every individual was trained for combat from childhood. Their farmers could fight as well as their soldiers because they made no real distinction between the two roles. Every human settlement was a potential military base, and every human civilian was a potential combatant. War scholar Quinthek began researching human history and culture to understand how such a society could develop. The data captured from human computer systems revealed a species that had evolved through constant warfare against their environment and each other. Competition and conflict were fundamental aspects of human nature rather than unfortunate necessities. General Williams demonstrated human tactical flexibility by constantly changing defensive strategies to prevent Zephyrian forces from adapting to any single approach. One settlement would fight as conventional infantry, while another used guerrilla tactics, and a third employed psychological warfare. The humans seemed to invent new combat methods faster than aliens could develop countermeasures. The battle for the Kepler system lasted 3 days and ended with Zephyrian forces withdrawing in confusion and defeat. Admiral Kexithara had lost 30% of his assault forces to enemies who were supposed to be harmless civilians. The humans had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than a conventional military threat. Admiral Kexathara realized that the Zephyrian Empire faced an opponent unlike any they had encountered in 3 millennia of galactic expansion. The humans did not just have an army, but rather were an army. Their entire species was organized for warfare in ways that made traditional military doctrine completely inadequate for dealing with them. Admiral Kexathara sat alone in his private quarters aboard the flagship, studying captured human data files. The information painted a picture of a species so alien that the Admiral struggled to understand how such creatures could exist. The humans came from a world that should have been impossible for intelligent life to develop. The planet called Earth was a nightmare of natural disasters and deadly predators that would have destroyed any civilized species within generations. Massive storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that turned day into night with clouds of ash and poison. Yet somehow humans had not just survived but thrived in this hellish environment. War scholar Quinthek worked frantically to analyze human evolutionary history using data recovered from their computer systems. The information revealed that humans had developed from persistence hunters who could track prey across vast distances by simply refusing to give up. They were predators who won through endurance and determination rather than strength or speed. Captain Sam Norton led his Special Forces team through the ventilation shafts of the Zephyrian flagship without being detected by any of the alien security systems. The human soldiers had been aboard the enemy vessel for 6 hours, gathering intelligence about Zephyrian command procedures and tactical capabilities. The infiltration mission was designed to demonstrate human abilities rather than cause damage. Captain Norton's team planted listening devices throughout the ship while avoiding contact with Zephyrian personnel. Their objective was to prove that humans could penetrate any alien security system whenever they chose to do so. Dr. Paul Grant had been captured during the Battle for Settlement Beta 4 and was now being held in the Zephyrian detention facility. The human anthropologist was actually pleased to have this opportunity to study alien culture from the inside. His captors treated him well according to their standards for prisoner care. Prime Analyst Zorthek interviewed Dr. Grant every day trying to understand human psychology and motivations. The Zephyrian intelligence officer expected the human to be frightened or angry about his capture. Instead, Dr. Grant seemed genuinely interested in learning about Zephyrian society and sharing information about human customs. The conversations revealed fundamental differences between the two species that went far beyond technology or military tactics. Zephyrians valued order and predictability, while humans seemed to thrive on chaos and uncertainty. The aliens sought to minimize conflict, while humans appeared to view struggle as natural and necessary. Dr. Grant explained human philosophy over dinner with his captors in the detention facility dining hall. Humans believed that conflict and competition made individuals and societies stronger. They did not fight to prove superiority, but rather to ensure survival in a universe that was inherently dangerous and unpredictable. Admiral Kexathara reviewed video recordings of the dinner conversations and felt a deep chill of fear. Dr. Grant spoke calmly about human warfare as if describing the weather. The human scientist seemed to view violence and destruction as natural forces like gravity or radiation rather than moral choices that intelligent beings should avoid. The captured human databases contained detailed records of Earth's history. That shocked war scholar Quinthek. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary development fighting against their environment and each other. They had survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years and asteroid impacts that would have ended most civilizations. Captain Norton's team completed their mission by leaving a simple message in Admiral Kexathara's private quarters. The note was written in perfect Zephyrian script and contained only a few words. "We could have killed you, but we prefer to win." The humans had demonstrated their ability to reach anyone anywhere while choosing not to cause harm. The message terrified Admiral Kexathara more than any military threat could have. The humans were saying that they had complete tactical superiority, but were choosing not to use it for destruction. They were playing a game where the Zephyrians did not even understand the rules. Dr. Grant continued his cultural exchange with Zephyrian personnel by teaching them about human art and literature. The stories and songs revealed a species obsessed with themes of struggle and survival. Human entertainment celebrated conflict while Zephyrian culture emphasized harmony and cooperation. Prime analyst Zorthek realized that humans did not separate military thinking from civilian life because they could not afford to make such distinctions. Their home world was so dangerous that every individual needed survival skills just to reach adulthood. War was not an aberration for humans, but rather a natural extension of their daily existence. The Zephyrian intelligence files on Earth described a planet where simple weather could kill thousands of people and where predatory animals hunted in organized packs. Humans had evolved in an environment where weakness meant death and where only the most adaptable individuals could reproduce. Admiral Kexathara began to understand why human tactics seemed so unpredictable and chaotic. The humans were not following military doctrine because they had never needed formal military doctrine. They had survived by being creative and flexible and by treating every situation as a potential life-or-death struggle. War scholar Quinthek made a disturbing discovery while researching human psychology. Every other spacefaring species in the galaxy had evolved from prey animals or peaceful omnivores. They had developed civilization by learning to cooperate and avoid conflict. Humans were the first predator species anyone had encountered. The revelation explained why human behavior seemed so alien to Zephyrian understanding. Predators thought differently from prey animals in fundamental ways that could not be changed through education or diplomacy. Humans saw the universe as a place to be conquered, while Zephyrians saw it as a place to find harmony. Dr. Grant demonstrated human adaptability by learning Zephyrian customs and language with remarkable speed. Within days of his capture, he was conversing fluently with his guards and participating in alien social rituals. The humans seemed genuinely fascinated by differences between the species rather than threatened by them. Captain Norton's infiltration teams reported back to General Williams with detailed intelligence about Zephyrian weaknesses and capabilities. The alien technology was impressive, but designed by minds that thought in predictable patterns. Human creativity could find ways to overcome almost any Zephyrian advantage. Admiral Kexathara realized that the Zephyrian Empire faced an impossible choice. They could try to destroy humanity, but that would require tactics so brutal that it would change Zephyrian society forever. They could try to contain humans, but that seemed impossible given demonstrated human abilities to infiltrate any system. The Admiral began to consider a third option that had never been necessary in 3,000 years of galactic expansion. Perhaps the Zephyrian Empire needed to find a way to coexist with a species that was fundamentally different from anything they had ever encountered. A species that could not be defeated through conventional means and could not be ignored without serious consequences. Prime analyst Zorthek submitted a report concluding that humans represented a new category of intelligent life that existing Zephyrian protocols could not handle. They were not just another alien civilization, but rather something that challenged basic assumptions about how advanced societies should organize themselves and interact with others. Admiral Kexathara requested a meeting with human representatives on the neutral space station Harmony Point. The Zephyrian commander had spent weeks studying everything known about human psychology and capabilities. He finally understood that defeating humanity would require destroying the fundamental nature of Zephyrian civilization itself. Ambassador Rachel Stone arrived at the space station with a small diplomatic team, including Dr. Lisa Brooks and Captain Jake Morrison. The human ambassador had extensive experience in interspecies relations, but had never dealt with a situation quite like this one. The Zephyrians were asking for peace talks after losing every military engagement. Elder Krixvatha represented the Zephyrian Empire's highest governing council at the negotiations. The ancient alien leader had lived through the expansion period when the Empire absorbed dozens of other species. This was the first time in centuries that Zephyrians were negotiating from a position of weakness. Admiral Danny Walsh commanded the human fleet that had arrived to support the diplomatic mission. The veteran military officer kept his ships at a respectful distance from the space station while maintaining full battle readiness. The humans had learned to be prepared for any possibility when dealing with alien civilizations. The first meeting took place in the station's main conference hall, with representatives from both species sitting across from each other at a large circular table. Admiral Kexthara found himself studying the humans with new eyes, now that he understood their true nature. They looked deceptively peaceful, despite being the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Ambassador Stone opened the negotiations by acknowledging that both species had learned important lessons during their recent conflicts. The humans had never intended to invade Zephyrian space, but were simply exploring new regions when they encountered the Empire's borders. The misunderstanding had escalated beyond what anyone wanted. Dr. Brooks presented detailed cultural analysis that explained why human and Zephyrian approaches to conflict were so different. The species had evolved under completely different conditions and developed survival strategies that reflected their unique environments. Neither approach was wrong, but they were fundamentally incompatible. Elder Krixavatha admitted that the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered a species like humanity before. The Empire's standard procedures for dealing with other civilizations were based on 3,000 years of experience with prey species mentality. Those procedures were completely inadequate for handling predator psychology. Admiral Kexthara explained his growing understanding of human warfare philosophy. Humans did not fight to prove dominance or gain territory, but rather to ensure survival and protect their independence. They would continue fighting indefinitely, rather than accept defeat because surrender meant death according to their evolutionary programming. Captain Morrison described human exploration objectives in terms that Zephyrians could understand. Humans were not seeking to conquer or destroy other civilizations, but were driven by curiosity about the universe and desire to find new homes for their expanding population. They wanted to coexist with other species when possible. The negotiations continued for several days while both sides worked to find common ground between radically different worldviews. The humans offered to share their unique perspectives on problem-solving and innovation, while the Zephyrians could provide stability and establish diplomatic relationships with other galactic civilizations. Dr. Brooks proposed joint exploration, missions where human adaptability could complement Zephyrian organization and planning. The species could work together to explore dangerous regions of space that neither could handle alone. Human creativity combined with Zephyrian resources could benefit both civilizations. Admiral Walsh demonstrated human tactical thinking by presenting detailed analysis of regional threats that the Zephyrian Empire had been unable to address effectively. Pirate organizations and rogue asteroid miners had been causing problems for years because they used irregular tactics similar to human methods. Elder Krixavatha realized that humanity could serve as the Empire's unconventional warfare specialists, while Zephyrians handled formal military operations and diplomatic relations. The two species could form a partnership that played to their respective strengths, rather than competing in areas where they were fundamentally mismatched. Ambassador Stone outlined the terms of a mutual cooperation agreement that would recognize human territorial claims in exchange for military assistance against irregular threats. The humans would help the Zephyrian Empire deal with problems that conventional military doctrine could not solve effectively. Admiral Kexthara accepted the human proposal because he understood that the alternative was endless conflict that would eventually destroy both civilizations. The Zephyrians could not defeat humanity through conventional warfare, and humans could not build a stable galactic civilization without allies. The final treaty was signed by representatives of both species, in a ceremony that combined human and Zephyrian diplomatic traditions. Ambassador Stone used a simple pen to sign the document while Elder Crixavatha performed the traditional Zephyrian ritual of mixing ceremonial oils to represent the blending of two cultures. Dr. Brooks was appointed as the first human ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire, with responsibility for managing the cultural exchange programs that would help both species understand each other better. The xenobiologist had always dreamed of this kind of long-term interspecies cooperation. Captain Morrison received command of the first joint human-Zephyrian exploration mission that would investigate reports of unusual activity in the Andromeda spiral arm. The mission would test whether the two species could work together effectively in dangerous situations. Admiral Kexathara was promoted to head the new Irregular Warfare Division that would handle threats requiring unconventional tactics. The Admiral had become the Empire's leading expert on human psychology and would train other Zephyrian officers to work with human methods. The partnership between humans and Zephyrians became a model for other interspecies relationships throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations learned that cooperation between radically different species could produce results that neither could achieve alone. Admiral Danny Walsh established the first permanent human base in Zephyrian space at the edge of the neutral zone. The facility served as headquarters for joint operations and as a symbol of the new relationship between species that had once been enemies. Elder Crixavatha reflected on how much the galaxy had changed since first contact with humanity. The Zephyrian Empire had spent millennia believing that all intelligent species thought in similar ways. The discovery of human predator psychology had forced them to reconsider basic assumptions about life and civilization. The treaty ceremonies concluded with Admiral Kexathara making a formal statement that would be remembered for generations. He acknowledged that human warfare had been unlike anything the Zephyrians knew because humans themselves were unlike anything they had ever encountered. But perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed to face the unknown challenges that lay ahead among the stars.